All right, guys, welcome to episode 28 of Trek Live. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about episode 5 of Discovery. There's a lot of episodes in that episode. With me, as always, is my co-host, Bill. How you doing tonight, Bill?
Doing good. Doing good. First off, I can't believe it's been 28. Like we were talking about this the other night,
Yeah.
and it is crazy. It feels like some days it feels like we just started this and it's like a week old, and in some ways it's like we've been doing it forever. So
hmm
it's pretty
Yeah.
weird, but 28's getting to be a big number. It's starting to feel big. So cool.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
But we have a lot to talk about.
We do. We have a lot to talk about. Yes, not just Discovery, but I have actually been watching some
No
Enterprise.
way. Well,
Yes.
let's hear that first. What do you want?
I just finished last night, episode 7, I think.
Oh man.
The Forge, I believe.
Yes. A
Yes.
classic.
So, um, definitely, um, an interesting start to season 4, but then it just starts rolling and rolling and rolling. So that's how I got to episode 7.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Our how did the World War II like time travel, temporal Cold War, like do they fall flat for you? Do they work? Like,
It's okay. It's so hard because it's like this whole arc has been so exhausting. Like
yeah.
I'm like, just as exhausted as the crew. I mean, probably
Mhm.
not as exhausted, but um, yeah, it's just like we gotta save the world again. Well, let's
Yeah,
do it. So
yeah,
um, I think it was okay. I'm glad that they kind of buttoned
yeah.
that whole story arc up. It was definitely good.
Definitely agree with that. The one thing I
Yeah.
kind of like, I'm not huge on the episodes as a whole, but I do kind of like what you were just saying, like especially in the beginning of part one, when they kind of think they're just going home
hmm
and that they're done and they can relax. They saved Earth, and then they figure out where they are, and you can just see it on their faces. Like, you got to be kidding me! Like,
Yeah.
we just went through all that, and now we have to do this. Like, so that kind of works because you're right. We do feel that, especially if you're watching it in sequence and you're
hmm
like right along with the crew for the whole thing. So I think that was pretty well achieved. But I could pretty much leave. It does achieve like wrapping up the temporal Cold War, which it needed
Yeah.
to do. I think
hmm
so to move on to bigger things. But yeah, I think season four, once that gets behind them and they kind of move into what season four kind of is with like, the mini arcs, the three parters,
hmm
it kind of finds its legs and gets really good. It's one of my favorite seasons in all of Star Trek. So
Yeah.
curious to see what you think round two, second time around with it.
Yeah.
Did the Brent Spiner episodes work for you? Like,
I liked them. I really
yeah,
did. I loved his kind of homage at the end of
yeah,
his arc. Yeah, it's gonna take a generation or two, and I was just like, oh yes, the gentle nod. I forgot about that. The
gentle.
nod
Yep.
to next gen, which was awesome. So
Yeah, it's cute. It's great. It's really aware of its history. Like, it's playing up on the canon, and kind of like what Discovery's doing, I think, pretty well. Like,
yeah.
very aware of the history. It's yeah. I think it's kind of cool that it does that.
hmm
It's not running away from being the fifth of these shows, and
Yeah.
having all this history to build off of and refer back
hmm
to, and yeah,
Yep.
they do it in a cool way.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, um, so I haven't really watched. I have watched some stuff, but I'm not going to really get into that. I have kind of gone back. I'm
yeah.
not. I'm not officially doing anything, but I did start like at the beginning of Enterprise season one, which is where I
Oh, you
typically start.
crazy person.
I'm not. I'm not making any official decisions or anything about like a full on like rewatch round three. I'm not tweeting
yeah.
anything. I'm just kind of like in my downtime when I'm not doing anything, just watching an episode here or there. So
Yeah.
I am doing that, but yeah, not doing a whole lot of thinking about it, not like analyzing,
You're not
not
ranking
watching
it or
it real
anything.
critically. Yeah, I'm not doing
Yeah.
much. Just kind of taking it easy and watching it relaxed, like laid back, just kind of doing it laid back, like unlike I
hmm
have in the past couple of years. I've taken it a little more seriously, so I'm enjoying doing it that way for right now.
Yeah.
Letting my more critical like focused watching go to Discovery and just kind of treating this like
Yeah.
kind of background wallpaper and
Mm-hmm.
enjoying it as such.
Yeah.
So, but getting into Choose Your Pain, episode 5 of Discovery, what just overall, like, what do you think? Is it how does it?
I loved it. I think it. I don't know. This I may be completely wrong, but it has a more positive um, receiving, so to speak, on Twitter, I think, than other weeks. And I
I think
think that it's a classic episode in that it's everything. The majority of the stuff that happens in the episode, you get tucked in at night. Everything's settled. Everyone gets back to the ship. Everything is kind of buttoned up and resolved, so to speak, in
so.
that episode. Yes. So I think it is more, a, I don't know.
Traditional.
It's more traditional, and it satisfies us, and that everything comes to a close, which I think has been a little bit. It's been different in past episodes. So.
Yeah, it's what kind of struck me on the first viewing, like how kind of old school it felt. I think the whole plot with Lorca being captured by the Klingons, like, and like you said, it gets wrapped up in one episode. It's not something that takes 2-3 hours to get through and out. It's like a one-off outing. It kind of feels like something out of TNG or any of the other shows. They would have done it kind of this way, and I kind of found that refreshing to have a sort of a little one-off with elements of longer-running arc-based stuff in it. There's certainly serialization still there. It's not a complete standalone, but it's more standalone than anything I think we've seen so far, which I thought was definitely refreshing and definitely instantly noticeable for me, at least. I think that's kind of what my initial take was, that it was the most. I know I had said last week for The Butcher's Knife, Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry, that I felt like that was the most Trek of the episode so far because of the ethical dilemma and the tough moral quandary they were in. But this felt the most traditionally TV Star Trek.
Yeah, for sure.
In a kind of different way. This is certainly dark, and there's some stuff that I'm sure we're going to touch on here that's not necessarily traditional Star Trek, but it structurally it certainly feels like a Star Trek episode. And that was kind of my initial takeaway, and I think that's probably why I see the same thing you do. One of my favorite follows on Twitter, Heather Ray on Twitter, each week kind of posts a poll, kind of similar to what I do, but she asks, like, what's your favorite episode so far? And it was open for like a day or day and a half, and this one ran away with it. It won with considerable margin, like maybe over 50% even. Like, it was pretty clearly a favorite so far. I'm not sure where it falls for me. I haven't done enough analysis or like thinking about it. Like, okay, this one's first, this one's fifth. But I agree with what you said, that from what we've seen, I think that the general response has been pretty darn positive, and maybe more positive than what we've seen so far. So I've even seen, real quick, I've just seen like even people on YouTube and other places that have been maybe a little down on it. Not necessarily negative, but a little more disappointed, a little more down overall, and over the last 3 or 4, all the episodes maybe, found that this was their favorite. I've seen people, I can't cite them by name. I watch a lot of, browsed a lot of YouTube stuff and listened to a lot of content over the last couple of days, and I've heard that a couple of times. So I found that kind of reassuring too, that maybe it's growing on people, and as they're getting comfortable with it, and as we're getting different kinds of episodes, people are kind of falling into it a little more.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What did you think of, right off the bat, I think I have to ask, like, Rainn Wilson as Harry Mudd? What'd you think? Did it work?
Perfect fit.
Yeah,
Perfect fit. I think it's not over the top. It's not undersold. It's perfect acting. And I think just as the episode as a whole, they didn't get too muddy, so to speak. There wasn't a lot of mud.
Yeah.
So I think it had the perfect balance. I think it had the perfect first episode. I'm guessing he's definitely going to be back, but I think it's a good start for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think I didn't know what to expect. I love Rainn Wilson. I've talked about this before. I love The Office. I've
Mhm.
loved him in everything I've seen him in, and I
Mhm.
had no doubt that he was going to be great. But I wasn't sure how they were going to work like Mud into it, and Mud's kind of like a really specific kind of character.
Mhm.
Hasn't necessarily aged real well. So I was a little like curious just to see how they were going to do it, and I couldn't have been more happy. Like the way that he speaks, the cadence, the kind of dialect he speaks in,
Mhm.
uh, kind of corny, kind of like he sounds like Harry Mudd. I had no problem. Like first scene when he wakes Lorca up, that dialogue right there, I totally bought that he was Harry Mudd,
Mhm.
and I kind of stopped thinking about it. I just bought him as the character that we were promised, and
Mhm.
it I was surprised at how well it worked, and um, I shouldn't have been that surprised because of trusting Rainn Wilson and everything he said up to this point in the lead up to the show, and that he's respectful of the show and loves TOS and loves Harry Mudd and clearly done his research, like knows the character. There's no reason to be surprised. An actor
Mhm.
that good, that respectful, that kind of tuned into what Trek is and all, it shouldn't be a big surprise that he kind of killed it.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I'm hoping that I'm sure we do. I remember him saying even like at I think it was San Diego Comic Con that he was in a couple of episodes. So I'm sure he's in at least one more.
Yeah.
Um, so curious to see how they pops back up though, plot wise.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I kind of wanted, well, I guess right off the bat, let's just talk about it. Like, did the F bomb work for you? Like, what do you think?
Oh man, going right for the
I'm going right because this is something that is like so dominant in the conversation right now, and I'm just really curious to hear what you have to say.
it kind of took me out of the episode, and I think um, it wasn't like a bad take me out. I was like, whoa,
Yeah,
okay, you know. Um, I go back and forth in it. I
me
think
too.
Star Trek doesn't have to be limited to, you know, what has come before, but also I try to work it into, okay, how would this work in canon? If Star Trek was real, would you be cussing in front of your superior? Would you be, and then I kind of took it into kind of my own life. Would I cuss in front of my boss? I don't know, and
Mhm.
it's tough because it was like an excited. I get why
Yeah,
she was excited, all this stuff, but I still don't know. I know it's a heated topic, and
it is.
um, I don't know. It seems silly to be taking the forefront. I feel like there's other things that I would much rather talk about.
Me too. I agree.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm glad we're just getting out of the way first.
exactly.
I'm on the fence about
So
it,
yeah. Mhm.
but yeah. What's your take on it?
Same thing. Kind of. I'm very mixed on it. I think given the context it was in, excited, and I think coming from the character that it was coming from, I can kind of believe it.
Hmm.
Let me back up a second. Part of I know you and I kind of had a different tact as this show was ramping up. You did a really good job of kind of shutting it off
Yep.
and not knowing much of anything. I, on the other hand, before the show premiered, knew that this was coming at some point. I saw them say at some point at some panel that there was going to be a scene where a character dropped an F-bomb and that it was done specifically and with a given context and that it was a conscious choice and that they weren't going to go back to that well. Like I think they were trying to lay the groundwork. Hey, this isn't you're going to hear it, but it's not going to be like R-rated Trek. You're going to hear F-bombs all the time.
Hmm.
So I was kind of on my toes knowing that it was coming. I kind of even knew the kind of scene it was going to be in. So it didn't take me out of it necessarily because I knew it was coming. But
Hmm.
um, when I've watched it with people, I've seen it take people out of it. So
Yeah.
like, because it is unexpected when you're used to a certain, you know, you're not used to hearing Star Trek do that.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, coming from Tilly in that situation, I agree with you that maybe a character doesn't curse in front of their superior, in front of their boss.
Yeah, but I have a
It all
I
depends on the relationship there,
yeah, I
though.
was just gonna say I have a rebuttal to that. You could say like there's some bosses definitely it's fine to do that.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
It's a tricky one, and I think it's a well that they need to not go back to very often. If they're going to do it, it has to be in the right context. It has to be
Yep.
something like that. It wasn't said in anger. It wasn't directed at somebody. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't sexual or derogatory. It wasn't anything like that. It was
Mm-hmm.
a true expression of like excitement and wow and awe, and coming from that character who everything we've seen is that she is experiencing those things. She's beyond excited to be on that ship working on the secret project, and
Mm-hmm.
she's a cadet. She's young. She can't believe she's there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Coming from her, I can get it. I understand why they did it. They want to extenuate that. They want to exaggerate that point that she is beyond excited.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, to be honest with you, I don't have a strong opinion on it. I will have a strong opinion on it if like every couple episodes they're dropping it and it's not
Mm-hmm.
done wisely. At that point, I think I'll get annoyed with it. It'll feel forced and a
Yeah.
little like arbitrary to be doing it just because
Yeah.
you can.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't hear it again for a while, unless it's in a perfect situation to hear it, I'm totally fine. I could take it or leave it. I get where people are coming from, that Trek's been a family show. A lot of people grew up watching it when they were 4, 5, 6 years old, and they're thinking, mom or dad wouldn't let me watch it if they knew this was in it. Well, the good news is there's 700 hours of other Star Trek you can watch, and you can work your way up to Discovery. The least of Discovery's issues with me, as far as that goes, with like kind of being mature and not necessarily for the 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds among us who love Star Trek. It's not really the F-bomb. There's a lot of violence. It's dark. It's clearly not a show aimed at young kids that aren't ready for something like this. But the good news
Yeah.
is, like I said, there's plenty of other Trek that you can spend your young years watching and working your way up to this. And you can tackle this when you're a little older, and it's maybe a little more suitable for you and gonna make a little more sense to you. So,
Yeah, and I
so there's
think
no shortage of other options.
not just in Discovery, but there's been some pretty dark themes that have been pretty dark for 5, 6 year olds to be watching. So
Yeah,
it's definitely not a new territory. I just think
no,
I don't know.
it's different.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
It's a different kind of conversation. Like there's violent stuff and dark stuff and some of the other movies, and I was terrified of the Wrath of Khan when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Terrified of it for a
Yeah.
couple of different scenes, and so this is not like a new thing where certain Trek kind of strays a little bit into the more mature territory.
Hmm.
First Contact's got some scary stuff in it. If you're
Hmm.
if you're young and you're scared of things, so um, it's a different. We've never had that kind of word, but we've had curse words in Star Trek before. Star Trek 4, there's profanity. Star Trek First Contact, there's some profanity. It's not. This is obviously like a step beyond what's normally there, but
Yeah.
I think you're right. This is something that we shouldn't spend a lot of time on, and I think we've probably already spent too many minutes on it. But yeah, it's dominating the conversation, and that's kind of a shame. But we've kind of set our piece on it, and
Yep.
I guess we just have to see where it goes and how Discovery responds to it, and how often they use it or not.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Did how did the Saru storyline work for you? Like, did Saru pop off the screen for you? Was that like what? Let me ask you this instead of that. What was the highlight for you? Like, this kind of has three sort of distinct storylines kind of going on. It's got the Captain Lorca and Harry Mudd on the prison ship with Ash Tyler, who's that whole thing is. I don't know how much you're reading about those theories, but that's a whole conversation to have.
Yeah.
But you have that, you have Saru in command, and you have the whole thing with the tardigrade too. That don't necessarily like they're all kind of overlapping, but they're all kind of having their own space in the episode. Is there which of those stories kind of work best for you?
I think Saru, his kind of thing definitely worked best for me. Um, I think that's the best. But I loved also. I know it's a little bit actiony, filmy type, but I love. It's just because I think Captain Lorca. I'll say it right now. Is probably my favorite character right now.
It's awesome.
Um,
Agreed.
I could go off on just what happened in this episode, but I'll wait for that. But I think I'm not big on Saru right now, and I think it was cool to see him in command and have these dilemmas because I feel like we don't see that in Trek. There's always they always know what to do, or they also have people counseling them, or stuff like
Hmm.
that. It's like yeah, these captains, it's a big job and it's a tough
It is.
job, and um, so I liked it. I'm not a big fan of his yet, but I definitely liked that what happened in that episode.
That's interesting. I love Saru so far, and I'll even go far. I'll even say this, that I think I have a hard time picking. Like a favorite actor in the show right now. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can't pin it, but you know the way Doug Jones plays Saru just continuously wows me. Like he's the most convincing alien to me that we've had. Like he's so, just his body language, the way he walks, the just seeing how tall he is, like that totally works for me. Like makes me buy that he is other. He's an alien.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that totally works for me, and I did totally enjoy the Saru kind of storyline and seeing a person who's not sure of themselves in command, and kind of wading into it kind of cautiously and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to do the right thing, but second guessing themselves, and uh,
There's some
that
jealousy going on
some
there too.
jealousy.
Yeah, I
Yep.
thought that was cool that they explored that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I'll just kind of even say this. I'm kind of bouncing around here, but it's the way our conversations go, like naturally, kind of
Yeah, that's right.
going into what we do. That scene at the end between Saru and Burnham is my favorite scene in the episode to me. Like
So
that,
powerful. Yeah.
it is. It's
Yeah.
so. I think it was so needed because it came at just the right time, because the whole dynamic between them, the adversarial nature of it, the I don't want to say it was getting old, but I wanted to see something happen with it. I don't want to see them just fight for fighting's sake
Mm-hmm.
forever, and not have any breakthrough, not have anything interesting happen other
Mm-hmm.
than just butting heads. So I felt like that was like just in the nick of time. We needed that scene to explore where this is coming from for Saru,
Mm-hmm.
and I find it totally credible. I think they did a great. This is why we needed those two episodes at the beginning, and
To
not for them to
build
be.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, we needed to see how powerful that character, Georgiou, was, and how she influenced these people, Saru and Burnham. Uh, that needed to be seen in like a real time manner. I think flashbacks would not have done it justice. That
Mm-mm.
scene doesn't have the power it has if we don't spend those two episodes with them as a crew, and seeing the kind of captain Georgiou was clearly, you know, they were clearly telling us she was for beyond those two episodes, for the 7 years prior to when we pop in and see them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that felt like real momentum, like real movement for the characters, real movement for the story. Capitalizing on this serialized storytelling. Not just keeping going, but having things happen. Like having
Yeah.
character development pay off. Not necessarily at the end of the season, but as you go.
Mm-hmm.
We're 5 episodes in. We kind of had this big scene between these two main characters who have conflict and are not on the same page. Um, Kind of come to terms with that, and at least I'm not expecting them to be. I don't think their conflict is extinguished. Like I don't think that's the last of it, but I
Mm-hmm.
think we have a better understanding of it, and I think they do too. So I think that was much needed and really well played by the two actors,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, they killed it.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think is what kind of topped the episode for me, topped it off, and made it like you know really top of the line Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yep.
interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about Lorca. I know that sounds like that's right on the forefront for you.
Yeah, I just like that. I just love his character that he especially like when he kind of confessed what he did. It was just so ballsy. It was just so out there, and again, it kind of be like, you're like, why is this guy doing this? Why is he keeping his eyes the way he is?
Mm-hmm.
He chose his pain. He chose to
It's just
keep keep what happened to him, to remind him what happened, and he doesn't hide behind it. It's out there, and I thought that
Yep.
was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I just yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that they went. It was ballsy to go that way with that character. You know,
Yeah.
like what he did. And I don't think we know the whole story yet.
Mm-mm.
I have a lot of questions,
Which is
but
awesome.
it's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't want everything wrapped up into a bow every episode,
Yeah.
everything. You know, like let it play out, let the characters find out, and
Hmm.
um, over time, and let things evolve and change. I I like I talked about last week. I'm with you. I love Lorca. I love that he's making me question, who this guy is. Like we really don't know. Like I was saying before in the last episode, he's kind of walking this line where he could either be like an extreme version of Cisco, or he's pushing the moral boundaries and
Hmm.
you know willing to go beyond what universal law says you should do, like context is for kings, like he says in the third episode. And he's on the other side of it. It's these countless other captains, Captain Ransom, Captain Tracy from the Omega Glory and TOS, these captains who we've seen throughout the franchise, throughout the 700 hours, who get pushed beyond and can't get pulled back. They go too far. In Star Trek Beyond, the Captain Edison, Idris
Hmm.
Elba,
Yeah.
he's one of the characters. People in Starfleet get lost. They go out there, they do their thing, and
Hmm.
experiences push them, to a point where they're morally, you know, beyond saving, I guess. And
Yeah.
Lorca, I think, is kind of walking that line, and he could go either way. And I love that. I love that this is a guy that could either, you know, could become one of those captains or not.
Yeah.
Maybe Burnham pulls him back, Saru pulls him back. These
Hmm.
characters that we're kind of coming to love and understand, might be able to keep him from going that far, or they might have to deal with him going that far.
Yeah.
And I don't even know which way I want it to go yet. I started out the show not wanting him to be, and I still kind of don't. I'd love to see them not have him become a bad dude and have to deal with him that way. I want him to stick because I love Jason Isaacs. He
Yeah.
is awesome.
Hmm.
That struck me just in the teaser of this episode when he's talking to the Admiral and going through the strategy session.
Oh yeah, he's
He's so good.
yeah, he's
so
so good in those scenes.
He is. He's like
Ah,
automatic gravitas.
yeah.
He's
He's so good in those scenes. So like, don't mess with me. It's just I'm willing to stand up to the Admiral, and he's just so ballsy. He blew up his own ship just to not have his crew be subjected to the Klingons. That's just so that's so ballsy and so out there. It's so awesome. That's what I love so much about Lorca. And
yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he is definitely walking that line of
Yes.
good, bad, and the ugly.
Hmm.
It's crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah. It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's a totally different way to go. I love that he's not the same as any other character. He's not like a
No.
replica of Picard or Cisco or Kirk. He's his own thing, and Jason Isaacs has said that in everything he's talked, in every interview, at every panel I've seen of him. He makes a big point to say, I want it to be totally different than any of these other captains that are like iconic for people like you and me who, go back and watch these shows continuously, and
Yeah.
these characters are like iconic heroes for the fans of this franchise, and
Yeah.
he made a conscious choice, and they obviously developed this character to be carving out his own niche, and I'd say that was a success already, because
Yeah.
this is going places that's totally different than anything we've seen, and
Yeah.
they couldn't have picked a better actor for the role.
Yeah.
He is pitch perfect.
I think he's just a product of the time period that they're in.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
like other characters, there's like, okay, this is the start of what could be, But with Lorca, he's like it's that time period. So I think that's
Yeah.
another thing that I love about him so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think we're seeing characters react to that time frame differently.
Mhm.
Lorca is kind of at home in this. Like you kind of get the impression that he's, I don't want to say at his best, but he can handle this. Like,
Yeah.
he's making decisions that might be questionable for us, depending on how these things play out and how much we find out about these choices. But,
Mhm.
he's clearly at home. He feels comfortable in this. And then you have like Stamets on the other end, who is like pissed off the whole time because he's like, I shouldn't be doing this. Like I'm doing all these things for the wrong reasons. Like
Mm-hmm.
he is completely displaced in time. Like he is not in the right time.
Yeah.
In the 20th century, and he's developing this technology. It's probably a totally different outcome for him. Like I'm sure he's much more at home in a time like that where he can do it in peacetime and at his own pace and
Mm-hmm.
um, with the right ideas in mind behind it. So
But
I like that. I like that it's challenging these characters and showing us that they're all kind of reacting differently to this situation that they're in.
yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Um, one thing that I've seen, I don't want to say I've seen it like a lot on Twitter, but I've heard it, people confused by it. Did you have a clear understanding when you were watching it that the Klingon captain is L'Rell, the female Klingon that we've seen before? Did you think that was a different character? Did you know that it was her? Like, did that work for you? Like, was that clear? Was it unclear?
Um, I don't know. I'm just like Discovery has kind of put me in this I don't know frame of mind where it's like it's not so much as this is who they are, but it's like them as a character, and they don't have set. It's hard to
Yeah.
put them as set positions, so to speak. So I don't know. When I thought of her, I thought of her as kind of the leader of the ship, or at least the kind of um, the leader of kind of dealing with the prisoners and interrogation and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody got a different vibe, but that's the vibe I got.
Yeah, I think there were people who thought she was a new character that I don't think people were. I think some people were not connecting, and maybe it's because in this episode she was speaking English instead of Klingon, and
Mm-hmm.
the setting was different. And I don't know. I know from watching Trek Yards today a little bit of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess the Engage podcast, Jordan Hoffman's
Mm-hmm.
official Star Trek podcast, he was confused by it. Like he actually went through the podcast thinking that, like, speaking about it as if that was a fresh character, like just a like a different, completely new female Klingon. And I guess
Okay.
my I'm curious to know if people are connecting that. I guess one of the challenges with the Klingons is because they're in such heavy prosthetics and they're speaking Klingon instead of English. Like, are
Mm-hmm.
people tracking these characters? Are they connecting that? Okay, this is the same one as that one. Like, or is that going to be a challenge for some? I guess because they don't like name her in this. They never say, "Oh, that's L'Rell."
Yeah.
She's just kind of there, and if you know the actress and you're kind of piecing it together, you know, or if you just know that she's in this episode, you kind of know that's who it is. But I guess if you go into it blind and you're just kind of rolling with it, you might be confused. I don't know. It's a question. It's an open question. I'm curious to see how people.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of hazy for sure, but I think the reason when I was watching it, I was like, okay, it's gonna take because like before that we've only seen them acted using like Klingon speech, and speech is a huge tool when acting.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think they do need kind of time to settle in, and for us as an audience to kind of get used to, I guess, because it's
Yeah,
almost like it's like their pilot episode, but with English and stuff like
yeah,
that, and interacting with other species and humans and stuff.
yeah.
Whereas
Coming into contact.
yeah,
Yeah,
whereas before it's always just been Klingon and Klingon interactions. So it was definitely confusing, I guess. I'll
yeah.
admit,
Mhm.
but yeah.
What I like about her character, I can say this. I like that they're exploring a different, like we've talked about before, but I'm going to get more specific with it. These different sides of the Klingons, and what really makes it work for me is in the original series, you see the Klingons 4 or 5 times. You have Aaron to Mercy and Day of the Dove with
Mm-hmm.
Kor and Kang, who are kind of traditional, like badass, warrior-esque, you know, violent Klingons. And then on the other side of it, you have like Koloth in The Trouble with Tribbles, and the Klingon who's in Friday's Child are like these sleazy diplomats who are liars and are like
Yeah.
spying on the Federation, stuff like that. And in in a lot of ways, the way the Klingons are treated in TOS is more complicated and multifaceted than even the Klingons you see in future Trek. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Enterprise, TNG, DS9, all that stuff. They are extremely well developed. We're both on the record as saying they're our favorite alien species.
Yep.
The Klingons are amazing, I think, in all their iterations. But in TOS, they really do show us different sides of the Klingons. We see different types of Klingons who go about their business differently. Like I said, in Day of the Dove, that main Klingon is interested in kicking your butt and
Yeah.
and imposing his will on you. Like
Yeah.
he's a physical, angry warrior Klingon. And then Koloth in Trouble with Tribbles is like deceitful, and he's got spies on the space station, and he's a politician. He's a sleazy diplomat.
Yeah.
And what they're doing with L'Rell is she's a weaver of lies and deception, and you're kind of seeing that not all Klingons are the same. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are angles that different Klingons take. So I like that they're capitalizing on that, and that they're not. For me, they're not. Yes, they changed the appearance of the Klingons. They look a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, they're not changing the Klingons. They're expanding on what we know about the Klingons.
Yes.
And in some ways, they're going back and expanding on things that haven't been explored since the 60s, since the original series.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just kind of reasoned some of these different Klingons as being different because it's the original series, and they didn't know what the Klingons were really. They were just bad guys. They were the Russians in space. But you know, they're doing a good job of going back and expanding on it and making it more credible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a prequel, I think, should do.
Yep.
It should expand continuity and make things retroactively make more sense and expand on the universe. And I think that's what the show's doing. And I think the Klingons are a big part of that. And if that's what they do, if they expand on the Klingons in the 23rd century and make the Klingons that we saw in the original series make more sense, you know, for all the
fills in
heartache.
the gaps.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And
So
speaking of that animated series reference, did you see?
Yes.
Did you pick up on that?
I did indeed.
I was like, yes, that's so awesome. And you know, Archer and Pike and all those schools. But when I saw that, I was like, yes. I don't like the animated series, but yes.
It's the second time they've referenced something in the animated series, and the episode that I wasn't on for, Context is for Kings.
Oh, okay.
Just filled in beautifully for me.
Yeah.
In that episode when she's quoting Alice in Wonderland, did I talk about this with you? Did I talk about it? I don't know, but she's quoting Alice in Wonderland. She's talking about, you know, her mother Amanda, you know, read this to her as a child with Spock.
Mm-hmm.
And in the animated series episode Once Upon a Planet, which is like the Shore Leave sequel, they go back to that planet.
Yeah.
Spock references that his mother was very fond of Lewis Carroll's work, who wrote Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, okay.
So it's like these deep cut.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So the people who say that the people who are making this show don't know their Trek are insane.
Yeah, get out of here.
Twice now they've gone to the animated series and taken things that, you know, are very obscure. You know, Captain April's kind of out there. People know who Captain April is.
Yeah.
If you've been a fan for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
they know the idea of Captain April being before Pike. But they're pulling these things from, you know, a show that not many people have seen, and you know, maybe people have seen but haven't gone back to it since they were little kids. You know,
Yeah.
they're really taking deep dives, and they're pulling things. There's so many canon references. The names of the systems that they're showing on the map of the Klingon territory, Mempod sector. That's all deep cut. It'd be easy to just kind of make up your own stuff. They don't do that. They go back and they like find credible things that make sense. You see Rura Penthe on the map.
Yeah.
Like, I totally love the attention to detail and the respect for Star Trek history, and that they're not just, you know, charting their own path and kind of forgetting what's come before. They're doing what they should be doing, which is capitalizing on the canon and the history and doing it in a way that makes sense and ties things together and makes everything a little tighter and cleaner. And yeah, I really don't want to hear again that the people making the show don't know their Trek. I think that's I think if you can say that, perhaps you don't know your Trek.
Yeah.
You're lobbing that criticism. Uh, but yeah, so
Mhm.
um, what do you think of the cast as a whole? Like, do you think the ensemble is coming together? Like, I know we've touched on a lot of these actors. I kind of raved and raved about Doug Jones. You've gone on about Jason Isaacs. I agree. Um,
Yeah, I think the more the screen time we get, the more that'll fall in. But I think they're definitely falling in line. I know, like, we added a crew member this week, um, so um, yeah, I think definitely it's definitely the chemistry is there kind of already. At first, it was kind of yeah, it's there, kind of there, but now it's like yeah, these characters are interacting and making some awesome scenes.
Absolutely.
So I'm definitely excited. Um,
Yeah, me
yeah.
too. I agree. I think they're really coming together well. I really love. He's not like a regular series regular in the main credits, but Wilson Cruz is the doctor, Dr.
Oh
Cooper.
yeah.
I think he's
Hmm.
great. He is oozing with charisma. Like every time you see him, he's just a cool guy. Like
Yeah.
he's a good character right off the
Yeah.
bat.
Hmm.
He's I want to see more of him. I think he's great. I think the actor's awesome.
Hmm.
Uh, but as a whole, I mean, I think like the cast is pretty uniformly great.
Yeah.
And I see some more some of the more critical reviews out there are not fond of Michael Burnham somehow. I love Michael Burnham and I love Sonequa Martin Green. I think she's spectacular on the
Hmm.
show. Um, but the cast as a whole, I think, is really gelling, and it's obvious that with each episode and with the crew dynamics kind of coming together, and like you're
Hmm.
saying, more scenes together and seeing how they all kind of play off each other, it's really
Yeah.
coming together pretty nicely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so I guess we have to talk about the new crew member, the new cast member, Ash Tyler. The
Yes.
is he a Klingon plant? Is he Vok? Is he a
He,
legitimate?
I do not know. He's mysterious.
Hmm.
Mysterious.
It is
And that's
serious.
what's I think is so cool, especially with his dynamic with Captain Lorca. Was like, oh yes, it's so awesome how they,
Yeah,
um, I don't know. I feel like bad dudes stick together, so it's like it's perfect.
it
So
is. That's a great way to put it. I hadn't thought of that. That's
yeah,
right.
and I think
Uh,
yeah, yep.
yeah, the whole dynamic between him and Laurel, the Klingon. You
Hmm.
know, um, if he is Vok, it kind of makes sense
Yeah.
because there's a clear connection there. Um, I just don't know, and I really actually kind of don't want to think about it too much. I'm kind of kicking myself that I've read stuff about this theory that is pushing me in a given direction. I kind of wish I knew less. I wasn't thinking about it. I just let it happen.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm
so I'm gonna try to. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I'm all about the conspiracy theories, so I'm like, yep, he's Klingon.
Hmm.
He's in the episode before they were talking about how they have to give up so much, and it's just I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to speculate, and
Yeah, it is
so
absolutely.
um,
And I think he is. I think he is going to be a. I don't know if he's Vok specifically. I
yeah,
assume he probably is in some way. I don't know if it's going to be as clean cut as he's genetically altered just to look like a human and he's Vok,
yeah,
or if there's some other shenanigans going on with,
mm-hmm,
you know, who knows? Who
mm-hmm,
knows what it's going to be? But
yeah,
I suspect that there's going to be some interesting developments coming,
mm-hmm,
and I hope it's more complicated than he's just undercover Klingon spy. I hope there's a little more
yeah,
to it than that. But
yeah,
um, that that would be cool too. I mean, again, Trouble with Tribbles, the whole kind of unraveling of that story is this Klingon who gets discovered by the Tribble, who's undercover posing as a human to cause trouble. So there's precedent for Klingons infiltrating,
yeah. But
generations.
the thing is, though, what does Lorca have on his desk?
That's true. That's true.
That's why
Hmm.
I was like connecting all these dots. I'm like, oh man, like keep your enemies. I mean, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. It's like Florka's like gonna. I don't know. I don't know. I
I
like the
wonder.
dream, I guess.
I
But
know.
yeah,
I wonder if that was done. I like as well as these guys know their track. I assume that was done intentionally to put the triple there, and
yeah,
if when Ash Tyler walks into that ready room, we're all going to be looking to see what that triple does.
yeah.
That's cool. Um, yeah, I'm really curious to see what they do and where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a pretty strong suspicion that he's a Klingon
Yeah.
of some kind.
Yep.
So I guess like I think we've covered a lot of stuff, but I have to ask you, what do you think of the ending? The last scene, like the twist. Not I'm not. I certainly am happy to talk about. I almost don't want to. Just the fact that these two men are, romantically involved, and it's done pretty casually and kind of perfectly, and it's not drawing a lot of attention to itself. So I almost don't think it even warrants that much discussion because it just is what it is, which is the perfect way to do it. It's perfectly normal and fine.
I thought it was done well.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, so it's not a lot to talk about. I'm excited to how they explore that relationship and how that affects their jobs and stuff. So
Yeah,
um,
agreed. But more
Yeah.
specifically, the very last moment when he's looking in the mirror, like, any thoughts on, like, what that could mean, or?
yeah, it's. I'd love to hear your take first because like it's hard to go like three different ways. But,
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's a lot of speculation that I don't even know if it's speculation or if it's pretty much confirmed at this point that there's probably going to be some mirror universe stuff going on at some point. They've pretty much telegraphed that, and yeah, I don't know if it's. I think they're probably foreshadowing that. I don't know that that's like mirror universe status.
Okay, I thought it was crazy. I thought that's what I was gonna say, but I thought it was crazy because
No.
before that, I thought I read somewhere that Frakes said that there was gonna be a mirror universe show.
He did.
Even
He did.
even like when just at the end, I was like, okay, this they're using mirror universe. I'm crazy. That's
Yeah.
not it.
No,
That's not
you're
it.
not crazy.
Yeah, and then I read that Frakes may or may not said that there might be doing a mirror universe, and I was like, oh man,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's what we're looking at specifically, or if they're just foreshadowing that, or
Okay.
if he's just, there's clearly the clear way that they're going with this is, that there are some significant side effects to, injecting yourself with tardigrade DNA and
Mm-hmm.
playing games with the spore drive.
Yeah.
I see it as a pretty easy out for why we never saw this spore drive again in the future. For all these different reasons, having to use this animal and the side effects that are clearly there for, human beings or, non-tardigrades, interfacing with technology and using it that way.
Mhm.
There's clearly stuff going on there that doesn't make it such a clean technology.
Yeah, I didn't recognize the mirror universe because no, he didn't have a goatee on it.
True. Yeah, he does not have a goatee.
So
Maybe it's not. Yeah, I'll be curious to see if they do it. Somebody's going to have a goatee, and
yes.
I wonder who it'll be.
Yeah.
I can see Jason Isaacs with a goatee. It would be
Yeah.
pretty cool. We'll just have to see though.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they won't do a mirror universe episode. Maybe it's all big red herring, double switch kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll do it. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was cool to, not surprising that the show is going to end its episodes with like, some sort of obvious cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. That was a eerie. I thought it was really effective. I thought it was like well directed. That in this scene where these two people are, sharing an intimate moment, just kind of doing their thing at night, brushing their teeth, having a conversation, getting ready for bed. You're like kind of put at ease watching the scene with just such casual, like nonchalant stuff going on, and then they throw that twist in there at the end, and it's really kind of creepy, and I think it works really well because of what it's building off of and what it's coming after.
Yeah, because you're like, and then you're like, what? It's just like it's like a huge jolt, and you're like, that's crazy, like kind of eerie, like you said. But I had to go back and watch it because I was like, okay, what's
What was it?
happening right now?
Yeah.
Is this they're focusing on the mirror? Is he bad? I was like, at first my first thought was like, okay, this is side effects of what he's done. Like, oh shoot, what's gonna happen? Then I was like, oh wait, mirror universe. Oh no, So
Yeah. Who knows?
yeah.
Clearly, that's going to be a um, major point going forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be explored. Um, and I'm glad. I'm glad that there are elements of like real science fiction in it too. It's not just like a war story.
Mm-hmm.
There's some cool Star Trek tech science fiction stuff going on,
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think and I think people are still unsatisfied with that somewhat. They want more like wide-eyed exploration and less conflict. But I'm pretty pleased that it's not just I this element of the story is what's keeping it Trek for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the war stuff is great and really interesting. It's a really interesting thing to explore in Star Trek history and Starfleet history. The stuff with the Klingons is all awesome, but having this element of kind of traditional Star Trek science fiction is really worth it. And I'm glad it's there.
Mm-hmm. It definitely had the roots. Definitely there. That kind of grounded it, not just like this action adventure episode, but also it also had some sci-fi, with the tardigrade and and then this. So
yeah, absolutely. Yep. So I'm not. I put you on the spot this way last week, so feel free to say, "Oh, I'm not ready to answer this." But do you know, like, just off the top of your head, like, is this in the upper echelon of episodes so far? Is it your favorite so far? Do you know, like, any opinion on where this kind of falls so far in the 5 episodes?
This is probably my second favorite. Last week's episode is probably my favorite.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, second favorite. What's yours?
That's a really good. I still don't know. It might be this one. It might be this one. It might be. I really like Context is for Kings, a lot. But I don't know. It's hard. I spend so much time thinking about like the old stuff and where it ranks and what's better than this and what's better than that. But the difference is I've seen those so many times and these are still so new and it feels different. I feel like I should be doing that and I should be like having an easy time going, okay, this one goes here, that one goes there. But I'm having a really tough time with it. But good.
I have this issue where it's like my watch styles. I watch the previous episode before the new episode, right? So after I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll watch the next episode, and then it'll be, oh, this is my next episode. So it's so hard, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you could. I'm not opposed to the viewpoint that each one's gotten better. I mean, it's not. That could be true for me. Like that might be the case. I haven't settled on that yet, but I kind of might feel that way. I spent Saturday, a few hours Saturday, watching the first 4 back to back to back. Like I just watched them run together because I was curious to see how it played, like in a run like that, binging it, like, the way people watch TV now. And thought it played really well. And I think I kind of maybe did get that feeling that it was getting better each time.
Yeah.
Each episode was getting more confident and. It is kind of jarring though when you watch it that those first 2 episodes really do kind of feel like a different thing. It feels like a different show. It's a different setting. A lot of the characters that I think we're going to come to know as like our regulars are not in it for the most part. It's really unique and different. It's going to be a really unique to Discovery thing to have these these 2 episodes that really are kind of like a prologue at the front of it. Not so much a part of the whole overwhelming. Overall series.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm trying to think. I guess to kind of wrap it up, like have you watched or listened to any Discovery content out there?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about last week's Warp 5.
Star Trek content, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun episode because of Warp 5 because they had this like D&D style like role playing game, um,
Oh yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
they played a kind of kind of a mission out, but it felt like you were in the mission, or the hosts were in the mission. It was really fun to listen to, and um, yeah, it's fun, and I liked it because it was a little bit different what they'd done beforehand, or what I've listened to Warp 5 do before. Um, so it was cool to see something new and see something really uber nerdy that we could nerd out on. So it was
I'll have
fun.
to check it out.
Yeah,
I'll definitely have to look at that one because I
yeah.
love the host of that show. Warp Five's a great podcast.
Hmm.
Doesn't get enough love because it's Enterprise, of course.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but it's a really good show. It's been consistently good since the beginning. Even um, Chris Jones himself
Yeah.
hosted it way back at the beginning of it, and
Yeah.
it's maintained its high quality throughout.
Mhm.
Um, for me, I took your advice and I listened to an episode of Primitive Culture, the not the one that just came out I think today, but the last week, the Epic Heroes and Star Trek, and it was
Yeah.
excellent. You were right.
Yes.
I've said this before, and I don't like picking favorites. There's a lot out there, but Primitive Culture is right up there for me with my favorite, like must listen to Star Trek content. There's a lot right now, especially right.
I listened. I listened to that episode today.
The new one. The one that just came.
Yeah. Yep.
Good stuff.
It's definitely highbrow. You got to be in the right frame of mind to kind of, because Zachary Fruling comes on and they talk about philosophy and a bunch of highbrow stuff that's definitely interesting. I won't listen to the whole thing, but yep.
That's the thing with that show. There's a couple out there that are kind of like that. That there are shows, and this is not to say anything. This is not like this show's better than that or anything like that. But there are podcasts that I can really easily listen to, like at work, that while I'm doing stuff, I can kind of have it on in the background and totally enjoy it. And I'm listening to it, and I got it. But there are more heavy discussions like Primitive Culture, like Metatreks, like Mission Log, which I talk about a lot. If I'm going to listen to that, I want to be able to really listen to it and not be distracted by work and stuff going on. So it's definitely one of those shows, Primitive Culture, that I think calls for your attention to totally enjoy it.
This good. This isn't like a snack. It's like the meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
They're doing some deep thinking,
exactly.
So which is cool.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to the new one for sure. It's good. I'll say that the Edge is kicking butt on Trek FM as well. They put out a ton of content almost every day. There's something new. They have like multiple mini shows within the main Edge Star Trek Discovery podcast.
Yeah.
They do an audio commentary track. They do a live show. They do Chris Jones does like a show that's centered on like canon connections, and they read fan response. Like it's really well done. They have it all covered, like Trek FM of course would. They're like professional grade, great Star Trek content. And then I also have to throw out just real quick the Trek Geeks, who ironically are also Bill and Dan. But they have a specific show, Discovering Trek, which is just their Discovery conversations, and they are awesome. They're a great show. They're really insightful. They're positive. They're not like rosy positive. They call out things that they have discussions about things that don't necessarily work for them.
Yeah.
They're honest, but they're very positive as a whole, and they're fun to listen to. It's not a downer show, which I've been pretty carefully kind of choosing. I can't name anything specifically, but certain things on like YouTube that are just kind of like mean-spirited and nasty towards it, I kind of just leave behind. I have no problem with criticism. I have no problem with like, hey, this episode's not so good for me, this reason or that. But like the people who pretty consciously seem to have decided to hate it from the beginning and are hating it the way that they were expecting to, I kind of am discounting a little bit. And there's just so much out there to listen to that you got to be choosy about what you dedicate the time to. So,
yes.
Any other thoughts? Anything you want to throw out there? Or...
I feel like it's just a lot.
It's a lot. I think we covered a lot of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I wrote down some notes, and I think we hit everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, we could certainly, I feel like we could go on for an hour about all the different Ash Tyler theories and
Oh yeah.
how it could be Vok and
Mhm.
how it could be this or that, and that's certainly fun, and I've heard a lot of that stuff going on, and I certainly have my theories and my thoughts, and I know I'm sure you do too, but I kind of also think that there's something to be said for maybe not necessarily overthinking it and
Mhm.
just letting it happen, and because it's continually surprised me. There are things that I've thought it was going to do. There were directions I thought it was going to go in that it's not.
Mhm.
So and some of that stuff's really surprised me. So I'm not 100% sure of anything about
Yeah.
the show, where it's
Which is
going.
perfect, which is awesome.
Every time I think I have it pegged and I have like an idea of where it's going, it ends up going somewhere else, which is really.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. At least for me, I don't have much else to think of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very curious to hear what you think about Enterprise as you keep going. I definitely want to talk about next week. Hopefully, if you can finish the 3-8-parter that you just started, the Vulcan one.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite pieces of Star Trek ever.
Yeah.
And our good friend of the show, Enterprise Extra, is in the middle episode.
Yes, that's my next episode, I think.
Awakening. Yep.
Yep.
So that's a big important episode for all kinds of reasons, and it's always fun to see him. But that's great Trek as a whole. Like just beyond all that fun stuff. There's a lot of good stuff in that, and a lot of the stuff Discovery's kind of doing here with like world building and filling in gaps and making things make sense, and a lot of canon porn all over the place in it.
Yes.
So yeah, but you're coming down to the home stretch. There's not much left. Season 4 is a short season. There's like 22 episodes, I think, and you're about 7 in. So you're.
I'm winding down on Enterprise. I still don't know what I'm gonna do next. Which one I'm gonna go for. But yeah, let me know in the comments, guys, which one I should do. We're gonna be wrapping it up here. I know there's, like Bill said, there's a bunch of Star Trek content out there right now, so we appreciate you guys tuning in to watch our stuff. Definitely like and subscribe for some more awesome Star Trek content. You guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. Come over to Twitter. Bill and I are active on there, talking about Trek, and we have some cool friends on there also that like to talk Trek. So definitely come over there.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want the conversation to end here. We want to keep talking about this. And
yes.
This episode, Discovery as a whole, whatever, anything you want, anything Star Trek related, we're down to dive deep and talk about it. And you never know, just starting a random conversation with us might spark an episode of Trek Live in the future. So
yes.
If you have anything on your mind and you want to talk about this or that, hit us up.
Yeah, so thanks, guys. We should be back next week. Regular scheduled programming on Mondays. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one, guys.
I feel like we need some sort of sign off. I don't know. It's always, I don't know.